You're kind of in this total shock slash survival mode.
Mm.
And then you're just like, "Zoom, okay, what do I need to do?" There's no roadmap, there's no guidebook, but I have skills and experience, and I have an amazing network of people working behind the scenes for the practice. There's like that saying, like when you pull your bootstraps up, and I'm like, when you got no boots, you just go without boots. You don't even have straps to pull up. You just go. This is a whole different scale of tragedy that we're dealing with right now. But I know how this story ends. Like it's going to look very different. The road to recovery in this particular situation is going to be so unprecedented, but it is going to be victorious and glorious at the end of it all.
I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Dr. Cerisa Clouse. She is a believer, wife, dog mom, daughter of immigrants, proud Navy veteran, Stanford grad, USC trained dentist, business owner, baker, weightlifter, and wannabe golfer who loves comedy and admires stand-up comedians and chefs, among many others. I'm so excited for you guys to check out our conversation today and just really dive into her story in all the ways. Welcome to the Story Project podcast. Cerisa, I am so happy to have you on this show today, and just thank you for making the time to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to have this time to sit down with you.
Well, we've been following each other on Instagram, I think, for probably a few years. You know, the dental
Mm-hmm.
community is not as big as you might think. There's,
Right.
I don't know, probably 160,000 dentists, but social media can actually bring people together and help humans connect, which I love. And I just recently reached out and I was like, hey, I want to really just put the spotlight on your story, get to know your practice's story, just your journey this year. So I'm really excited to dive into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I always like to start first with this fun table talk icebreaker questions, and I never prep my guest. I'm like an over prepper, so
Same.
yeah, I know most of the women I have on the podcast are like type A, overachiever,
Oh, yeah.
all that. Yeah, so it just makes it a little more spontaneous. Okay, what meal do you prepare best?
Ooh, this is a fun question because I love cooking and baking.
Okay,
But honestly, just a basic protein bowl. Like I say it probably and I also have just happen to have all gut issues that I'm like working through. So there's like this whole health journey that I'm going through. But like I kind of joke to people, but it's not a joke where I'm like, I could eat meat and rice like every day for the rest of my life. So just like a basic, like balanced protein bowl and
yeah,
just kind of like switch it up with yeah, different things. But so that's kind of like my go-to. But I don't know, that's kind of a fun question because I like to prepare a lot of things, but we'll go with protein bowl.
okay, okay. Well, we protein makes the world go round, and we all know that,
Yes,
especially.
exactly.
Yes, especially as women. Protein and strength training, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What's the best advice you've ever given?
Ooh, it's funny because I just have faith.
Mm,
I say a lot of things, and I try not to say anything unless someone asks for it if it's advice. Um, but just those two simple words, just have faith.
that's awesome. I love that. I would agree with you. That's probably one of the most important things ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Which beloved article of clothing would you never want to remove if you had to just leave it on all the time?
Ooh, probably my joggers, just the Viore joggers are just like
Yeah.
you can't. I don't know. They don't even feel like they're on. They don't feel like they're out. They're just a part of me. They're so comfortable.
Yeah.
I got on that train pretty quickly because I was like, they're just joggers. And then you put them on and you're like, oh gosh.
Really. Yeah.
Um, and they're so well made. So it's not like you have to get new pairs all the time. Like they just, yeah. So,
That's fun. Yeah.
yeah,
Mine
buttery
would
soft joggers.
Yes. Mine would probably be like the Align Lululemon pants.
Okay. Funny you say that because I was thinking of that and I have that set aside because I'm catching a flight this afternoon and those are my like that's like my flight
Yeah.
choice. So yeah, but that is very close second. Yeah.
They're amazing because you can pair like put a shacket with it,
Yep.
so like at least I do like longer and it's just like in cute sneakers and you're good to go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're so, yeah, I love those. And they're, again, so well made.
they are. Okay, last question. What's your favorite way to spend time with your family?
Honestly, just sitting around a table and eating and laughing, nothing super planned, just, yeah, just catching up and laughing. And there's always good food,
That's
for
all.
sure, my favorite time.
Yeah, you're a foodie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like you and your husband and me and my husband should all go out and like have a
Would,
really nice like
we would
meal.
have the best time.
We would have the best time. Yeah. Recently, Josh and I were talking with our team. We were having a team dinner, and I think they make fun of us a little bit for how much money we spend on food. And part of what I shared though was I said we do because one, food brings people together and it just really opens up conversation and connection and there's purpose
Yeah.
behind like
Yeah.
a well-designed, dinner together with friends or family or whatever. And there's so many good things that come from
So
it.
much,
Yeah,
so much. I can go on about how much I value just breaking bread with people you love. And yeah, and
yeah,
that kind of having it be the center of like gatherings. Yeah.
totally. Awesome. Okay. Well, so it's a date. I'm really
Sounds
good at
good.
planning things. So we'll come out
Love
there
it.
next time and
Sounds good.
guys. Okay. Well, I'm excited to dive into your story, and I'd love to begin. Just I know that you grew up in a military family and then went on to serve in the Navy yourself, which I remember when I was in high school. They always they'll come and visit your schools and pitch the different like Navy and Army and Air Force, and I was the most interested in the Navy because of the outfits. Like I would just, oh, the women just looked fantastic and just
They
so
do, I will say they do have the best uniforms,
yes.
and
Yeah.
Marines will claim that, but they're under the umbrella of the Department of the Navy. So there you go.
Uh, so fantastic fashion. But how did those early experiences really shape your sense of discipline and purpose?
Seeing my dad serve, I mean, when you're a kid, and like no matter what your environment is, it's normal. And so even in his absence, when he was deployed, um, it was just something neat to know. And it's like, oh, we're gonna get the same outfit for his homecoming. And there was, even as a kid, not having a ton of context um, of a mission or the exact ship he was on, there was so much pride in knowing that your family was a part of something bigger.
Mm.
So that was something that was just very deeply ingrained in a very non-intentional way, just with my dad's service. So it felt, and as a kid, it was just really fun because there was such community
Mm.
with his shipmates when we would go camping, or if you needed help, like with school drop-offs or things like that. We were just there, we would hang out with the other Navy families. And to this day, like I haven't seen some of them probably for a good few decades, but yet we're still connected through Instagram or social media. And it's really cool because we have these really core memories that we formed together, even though it was just like a snapshot in time from our youth. But we were brought together because of our dad's service in the US military. And there was always a sense of community from that.
So was he in the Navy as well?
He was in the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Okay.
was in the
So that
Navy.
inspired you, obviously, to join. And then how many years did you serve?
So I was technically in for 8 years. I joined, so it's 4 years active
Okay.
and 4 years of Ready Reserve. And I actually joined through a health professions scholarship. So it's something that you can do after you apply and are accepted to professional school. And you have the privilege of practicing your profession. And for me, it was dentistry, while being an officer. And there's a limited number of scholarships
Okay.
each year. And for me, it was something that I wasn't really gunning for, but I knew it was an option, especially, I mean, even like 15 plus years ago when I was in dental school and the insane cost of dental school was just, I mean, I knew around how much it would be, but I'm like, that's kind of mind-boggling. So when I knew they had these scholarship opportunities, I thought about it, and I always had so much respect for the military, and um, I thought, wow, when else in my life am I going to be able to do something like this? But I wanted to make sure I did it not because of the scholarship and the financial
Yeah.
aspect of it. Because
Yeah.
I knew even then in my like naive years in my 20s, I was like, if you do anything for the money, you're not going to be happy. So I wanted to make sure that I really valued all the other parts that came along with it. Um, and coming out of school debt free was a really nice perk as well. So
It's incredible. My
yeah.
gosh. Okay. So were you serving in the Navy like simultaneously while you were in dental school or post dental school, like after?
So, so
During.
when
Okay.
yeah, so for this particular scholarship, you go through this application process, interviews, and when you receive the scholarship, you're essentially commissioned as an officer when you start school.
Okay.
Um, and I chose the route where I pretty much, and you can do it through any program. It's not like a military school. So I got my training at USC, and was technically classified as Ready Reserve at that time. And then when I graduated was when I started active duty.
Okay. Wow. That's
Mhm.
incredible. That sounds very busy.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so awesome. Yeah. And then I chose to be Greenside when I graduated. So that just means so I kind of, my whole active duty career, I was stationed with the Marines. And so that was such a privilege and such a life-changing experience. And but for the Marines, the healthcare personnel is basically Navy. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so it was like I was with my Navy sailors and everything, but we were on a Marine base.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
What drew you to dentistry?
so many things. Um, it's funny that you ask this because I recently came across my personal statement for the Navy, and it really just kind of laid out all these things about dentistry. It's funny because when you're applying to dental school, people are in these interview rooms, they're like, I'm passionate about dentistry. And even then, I was like, how do you know? You don't even know dentistry. Like, how are you passionate about it? So, um, I always was fascinated by um, working with people, and I loved, like, it's not that I loved it, but service was always a part of my family. It's just a part of who I am. And when I was an undergrad, it was very common. It's like so many people just were like, went to med school, med school, med school, med school. And I remember having some really fruitful conversations with our family dentist um, in an interesting way because he didn't want to become a dentist, but he was kind of, um, I don't want to say forced, but he was really nudged by his parents. He was a very good dentist. He was an extremely kind, talented clinician, but it didn't really do it for him. Um, so I just thought that was interesting because it seemed like his career was very fruitful and enjoyable and fulfilling. And so it kind of made me wonder. And so during undergrad, I did a lot of service projects and I had different involvement in different kinds of service. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to become a doctor, but I do want to serve people in a healthcare setting. And so I made it a point to shadow some dentists around where campus was and really dig deep into conversations. And one of the dentists I shadowed, she was a former president of the Mid-Peninsula Society up in the Bay Area. And she said something it kind of really stuck with me. And she was like, it is not about putting your hands in people's mouths.
Mm.
And because that's what people think of. They're like, oh, I can't stand like, and
Yeah,
they're just so, I realized through my shadowing the countless ways there are to impact people as a dentist. And in addition to that, the other parts of the career where there's more autonomy than going the regular MD route. So, um, and even from a standpoint of non-career where you're using your profession and your skills to do mission trips and serve other people that way, I thought that would be so amazing to pursue. And then it was kind of, I learned how much of an art and a science it was. And I just, it just was a natural, I kind of just gravitated towards it the more I kind of inquired. So,
that's
yeah,
awesome. Oh, I
yeah.
love that. Yeah, I think it's maybe the first time I've spoken with, I think, a dentist that has served time in the military and has also talked about just the beautiful blend of both of them being so complementary. That's really like very intriguing to me. I'm sure that it, especially your years in service, also has really set you up to understand leadership in a whole new way in your practice and as a practice owner. Would you say that it has?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it was funny because even as you say that, I think about even when I decided to leave the military, I told myself I would never want to be a business owner. Um, but as life had it, that's the trajectory I went on. And the skills, the interpersonal skills, the interactions, the things that you learn in the military were just so invaluable. And even if it was from interactions that were not good, and just kind of seeing good leaders and not so good leaders, and being a really good listener, and teamwork and camaraderie, like all those things kind of working in concert to make this really beautiful experience of life and really making you excited to go to work every day. I was like, oh, okay, wow, I did learn a lot.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
gosh, that's awesome. Well, you
yeah.
mentioned like dental mission trips. I would love to just hear a little bit of what humanitarian like giving back work that you have done and what's been kind of near and dear to your heart over the past few years.
Yeah. Well, again, like service is just kind of a part of my family and who we are. Like when we were younger, my mom and dad would bring us to the rescue mission to feed the homeless and things like that. So doing community service projects growing up through junior high and high school was just something that in no way was it like, oh, I want to make sure I can put this on my application for whatever. It was just something that I truly enjoyed. And so through college, I was involved in Rotaract, which is essentially like the young version of Rotary.
Oh yeah, okay.
So yeah, so starting in college, I was really involved in Rotaract, where I mean, the literally the day after I graduated from Stanford, I caught a flight after a few hours of sleep um, to do a service project in India. So some of my more like work kind of started as young as then. And then in dental school, I became involved in the Christian Medical Dental Association, where we would do mission trips to Central America. And it was, of course, as a dental student, when you're first and second year and you haven't really gone through clinical rotations to do certain procedures, you had a little bit more freedom on these mission trips, but not in a nonchalant liberal way whatsoever. You were kind of mentored by more experienced dentists. And so we would spend a week or two in El Salvador or Guatemala, um, just doing dental work and getting people out of pain and learning about the village and the community and spending time with everybody. To this day, I'm still in touch with some of the missionaries we worked with, and those are, I mean, those will be lifelong relationships. But the there was just no way to describe the fulfillment as a dental student
Mm.
the gratitude that someone has when you get them out of pain, even if they don't speak your language. I was one of the few who happened to speak Spanish, so I did I did understand. But um, just the gratitude that they would express, and it was just, gosh, it was um, yeah, it really really filled your cups. Like it was just a really beautiful experience. I'm so glad I spent time in my 20s doing that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, in the last few years, it's funny, as in the last few years, I haven't done mission trips really because it's just with the business. It's been,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm now just becoming okay with leaving the office for more than a long weekend. Business ownership has really shifted things a little bit, but like always there's always a fire kind of burning. There's like of service and wanting to do that. So in this journey that my team and I are on right now, we're actually just talking about looking for a mission trip or a service project to do this year together.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have a 19-year-old son who just finished his freshman year at Cincinnati, and then my daughter is 15, finished her freshman year in high school. But when Caden was probably 13, we took him with the Free to Smile organization, and they go all over providing like cleft lip, cleft palate,
Oh, that's
surgery.
awesome.
And it's such an incredible organization.
Yeah,
My
that
husband
is,
served on the board with them for years. And so we took Hayden, and it was one of the most impactful things. And also, he was able to just have this experience there in Guatemala that he would not have been able to have in an operatory here. And they were able
yeah.
to, he was able to be back there in shadow, and, none of
Hmm.
it bothered him. And they said, you need to look at that
Yeah,
because if the blood doesn't bother you, this
yeah,
could be a profession for you. So
absolutely.
yeah. So he's
Yeah.
actually he's majoring in bio for his undergrad, and he's on a track into dentistry.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. And he went again when he was 18, with his uncle, same group. And it's just been, I can't say enough good things for uh,
Yeah,
really just serving as like maybe a stepping stone to your purpose, especially when you're that age.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially at that age, especially in the time that we live in,
Yeah.
where it's just distraction bombs coming from all directions.
Right.
And the fact that your kids are getting those kinds of experiences, it just fills my heart just hearing that because like I feel like that's just where humanity really just shines, honestly. Where you connect with other people, serve them, help them, and it just yeah, it's really a two-way exchange. It's not like a one-way service. That's really awesome.
Yeah. I know my daughter, she's like, "Well, mom, I think it's my turn." I was like, "You're absolutely it is." So I need to,
Yeah,
yeah, I need to get with a group and figure out where we want to go. And
awesome.
so, yeah, yeah. I think it really
Love that.
helps you get out of the bubble that you live in, the technology bubble that all of our, Gen Z students live in. So
Yeah,
yes. Well,
for sure.
before we segue and talk about a little more your approach to dentistry, I just had to ask you, have you seen the show Lioness?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Just based on your background, I mean, it's not Navy, but it's like CIA operatives. I mean, I just like literally when you were sharing, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like you would really probably like it.
I'll put it in my queue. I think
Okay.
I would. It's funny you say that because when I was younger, I kind of had this decision to make if I wanted to go on this route where I got invited to do like this CIA internship
Oh,
straight
wow.
out of high school.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And so I really, really thought about it. And I was like, that would be so awesome. And I could like serve my country in that way. But then I thought about how much I love my family and love from my friends and relationships. And I was like, I feel like I would have to live a double life and not tell people things.
Yes.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah. Yes. There's so much of that tension, especially with the lead character in that show. It's
Yeah.
constant between her, and she has two young girls and a husband. And so then she leaves and goes on these
Oh,
crazy
wow.
missions. And And so there, it's you do see that play out throughout. It's the common theme.
Interesting. I'll
Yeah,
definitely check that out. That
yeah.
sounds fascinating.
I
Yeah.
don't have a big stomach though. There are scenes I'll just warn you that are like they torture people and just stuff like that happens. And so
Yeah.
I know some people that doesn't bother. So I just forward those things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds, yeah, I'm not bothered by that stuff,
Okay.
weirdly, but
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I would love to just talk about the story of your practice, and you can just share just a little bit about it and kind of your journey with um, Palisades Dentist.
Yeah. So my active duty service obligation ended at a certain, it was about 2015, 2016. And I did consider staying in as a career dentist, but then just weighing a lot of things, I realized how much I wanted to just become a part of a community. And so at the time, I was married to an oral surgeon, and there were different opportunities that came up for us in Southern California. And my family at the time, both of our families were in Southern California. Since then, my entire family has moved out of state.
Oh,
Story for a different day.
okay.
But it's a very common story with a lot of people who have moved out of California. But some wonderful opportunities came up in West LA, and I just I was familiar with Pacific Palisades from growing up in Southern California, and I was just kind of like, wow, that is like such an amazing community. I can't even imagine ever working there or living there. And it just so happened that with the opportunities that we had, I became an associate in Malibu, and he started working in a practice in Brentwood, which is right the adjacent town. Um, it was be it was and because of our journey through the Navy and doing the scholarships, I mean, it was a very unique position to be in to have no debt from school.
Yeah.
From, yeah. And then, so we were able to, we were able to buy a home in the Palisades, and it was it was the cheapest single family home at the time. There was an article about it and everything, and I was like, wow, oh my gosh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And even then, as I was an associate, I was just kind of like, this is great. Loved my patients, the doctors I worked for. I worked for another practice some days, um, about 20 minutes away towards the airport. And I was like, gosh, I would love to have a family and just, I love just going home and not having to worry about dentistry. But an opportunity came up where a colleague needed to really scale back because of some family stuff. And she was a younger dentist. I knew of her. She actually went to USC with me, but she was a few years older. And so it was just a mutual friend that I served with in the Navy who connected me with her. And I was just kind of like, okay, she's probably maybe looking for an associate to cover part-time. And just with her situation, she was like, I actually need to walk away from the practice. And it was like this, it was real. I mean, to this day, like the dental evaluators, the CPAs were like, that doesn't make sense because she had acquired this practice who had, um, the practice had been there for a few decades already. And she took over and modernized and digitized it. And she had to walk away for, for some personal reasons. And I was just like, oh, I'm not ready to actually take over a practice. I never really wanted that, but can I?
Yeah.
But it kind of was this opportunity that you just couldn't say no to. It was like right in the heart of the Palisades. Um, and we were part of the community. And so we acquired the practice, and I walked away from my associate jobs and just kind of poured into the practice thinking, okay, it's already running. So, and this
Yeah.
is something that I laugh at now because I think a lot of younger dentists think and hope this, where they're like, I just want to focus on the dentistry. I
Yeah.
just want to, I just want to focus on the dentistry and have a great team who can kind of run it,
Yeah.
and it'll be
Come in
great.
and plug and play, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. It's like already running, and then And then you're like, oh my gosh, like down, like from the very, like as soon as the actual like day that the practice that I closed on the practice, and I think it was payroll was due like within a week, and I was like, oh gosh, like what do I do? And there was a kind of a behind the scenes office manager slash consultant who was helping guide things. But at the end of the day, it became this journey of discovering, learning things I never even wanted to learn or could have even thought that you had to learn anything from, and even things that were already in place that seemed to be well functioning, you learn maybe aren't so well functioning. So you kind of have to tweak it and everything. And then yeah, and then I realized how dentistry is like actually the easiest part. And so um, I I just take too much pride in whatever I put my hands on, whether it is baking a batch of cookies or running a business. So I really poured into taking ownership into the practice, and that it came with goodbyes. It came with some really tough conversations. It came with trusting. The HR and managing we're a small staff, but it's still managing people. That's something that I have, it's a continuous learning process, but that was, you know, such an initial challenge that was a great catalyst to learn more about myself because um, I was just one of those leaders where I just poured and poured and poured and poured
Mhm.
and poured and poured and poured. And I was so empty. I was so empty, running on fumes. And that worked to some extent for a certain amount of time. And then I was just like, wow, I feel like I'm burnt out, but I'm not working that much. Like I'm not actually seeing patients because we're totally fee for service. So I'm not, it's not a mill. I'm not going from chair to chair, but I'm like, why
Yeah.
am I so exhausted? And I'm not really seeing many patients, but it was just, it's interesting because it was just constant work, but it became just this like really chaotic process at first that kind of started to get more fluid as I learned about myself, as I navigated my own things and realizing that I needed to be the best version of myself
Mm.
so that can project out onto the practice and onto my staff.
Yeah.
So, and that's hard. That was probably the most challenging thing because um, having like taking a pause for that self-reflection and awareness
Mhm.
to start with yourself is uncomfortable on its own. And then but then realizing how much you have to translate that into parts of your business while still showing up for your patients and making sure that they know that they are taken care of is that was quite a journey. But so rebranded it, definitely made sure that I had a very concrete mission that was very embedded into the fabric of the community. Like part of our mission statement is literally staying connected to the Pacific Palisades because it's a small town. It's a very unique community. So it was really important for me to make that a part of our mission. We're not just a dental office where people find us because we're on some list. And that's something I'm very grateful for. We never had insurance contracts, so that was something where I was like, okay, this has to be truly a neighborhood labor of love,
Yeah.
where people know that we're here to not just do dentistry, we're here to offer an experience and to love on people.
Yeah.
And we have to, it starts from here, and then my
Yeah.
staff has to be in a good position too, emotionally, mentally, physically. So,
Well, when
um,
you say that is one of the biggest aspects of leadership that I think we all have to learn is it has to begin with us, and we have to work on our own wholeness and health and happiness in all the ways to be able to pour into everybody around us, or else we can quickly become burnout.
oh
Like
yeah,
that just actually speeds up the process of burnout.
for sure.
Yeah.
And it's really palpable.
Yes.
Like people, not just the people you work with in an immediate sense every day, but the patients feel it. They know.
Yeah.
it would kind of be these cheeky comments, but I mean, after enough time, I was like, okay, yes, everyone's trying to tell me something. Where patients were like, you need a break. When do you go on vacation? When do
Yeah,
you take a break? And I'm like,
yeah.
ha, 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 ha. And then I was like, okay, I think, yeah, no, yeah,
Right.
I got it. God's telling me, okay, it's not even just science. There's
Yeah.
just words, like direct words coming to my
Yes.
face, and I just need to receive it,
Yeah. Yes.
accept it.
Right.
So,
Oh,
um, yeah, so we are definitely a relationship-based practice. Our staff is it took a few years, but we're this core group that we're like a family. But there's still this beautiful relationship with my staff where it's not like the type of family where, sometimes of course we all get too comfortable, but um, it's like this dance between like mama bear and boss and oh now my brother and sister and
yeah.
but all there it's so beautiful when a day does get busy or something does go a little bit or like awry on the schedule. It is so beautiful seeing my staff kind of come together and like get things done.
Yeah.
um, but then we could just kind of let our hair down and laugh about farts like 2 minutes later or something,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
um,
good people and amazing teams just um they they build extraordinary businesses. I mean, I would say it begins with the leadership, but they are um necessary and just I don't know, we brag on our team at Studio 88 all the time and we couldn't do what we do without them, you know?
exactly.
And it does
Exactly.
feel like such a collaboration. We're not
Yeah,
just running with a vision. I mean, we're all in it together.
exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. I happen to have the name on the door, but I hope I tell them enough and I hope that I acknowledge my team enough so that they know I'm kind of nothing without them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and what's really cool is when I hear feedback from patients, whether it's in a review or just verbally, I always hear that. They're like, your team.
Oh,
Oh, you guys are all so amazing. And I'm like, oh,
yes.
it's really, um,
It
it's
makes it all worth it.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it does.
Yeah.
I would love to just touch on for a minute. I was interested to hear a little bit about your approach, the biomimetic. And
Hmm.
yeah, what does all of that entail and involve?
Yeah, biomimetic dentistry. So I am so fortunate that with my training at USC, some of these biomimetic bigwigs were just part of the curriculum and instructors there. So it's a really simple concept. It's a term that people throw out there. It's kind of like holistic where it can mean a lot of things, but it's at the end of the day, it is such a simple concept. And it's really just using a minimally invasive approach, using it and preserving the tooth structure in its most natural form and function, and just respecting the natural biology of a patient's mouth and down to the microscopic histologic components of the tooth. So it relies a lot on adhesive dentistry um, and everything from aesthetics to function. It is just like a very minimally invasive, biologically respecting approach versus um, some of some approaches to restorative dentistry where it's like just cut the tooth down, doesn't matter how much you lose. Like in biomimetics, you're like aching if you have to sacrifice even half a millimeter of tooth structure unnecessarily. It's like, oh, if
Yeah.
like you don't need to break the contact to do that restoration, you don't need to break the contact.
Mhm.
If it's a perfectly sound with the, you know, microscopic mechanics, like preserve that. There's nothing ever will be better than the natural tooth structure that God gave you if it can be healthy. But
Yeah.
if it's not, then let's replace it with something as similar to what you naturally have as possible.
Yeah.
So,
I work with so many dentists that also are adapting, that approach and learning more and more about it. Do you feel like there's a shift in dentistry on the whole to move towards the biomimetic, holistic approach?
To be honest, it's like I want to say I hope so,
Hmm.
but I think there is among a certain cohort of dentists. I
Okay.
think there is among dentists who have the luxury to take their time. I'll be honest, the way that insurance has kind of ravaged our industry, and it's like some of these private equity firms and DSOs are taking over things, and hearing story after story after story of colleagues being bombarded with these horrific decisions of like time and money and unnecessary, selling and treatment and things like that. And they're just trying to do what they have to do. They have loans to pay off and things like that. And it's kind of an impossible challenge. But for the average dentist who is able to truly take their time, um, and I think there's like a branch of a biomimetic community that's even called literally like slow dentistry or something, where you don't have to necessarily be slow, but
Yeah.
it truly is such a meticulous art to practice true biomimetics. You can't rush through certain ways of doing something. Um, so I do see, I think because I'm connected to the fee-for-service community, to biomimetic dentists, I like to, and I go to the symposium in LA, and it's very biomimetic centric. I like to say yes, I think there is a push for it. There's certainly a respect for it. But as dentistry as a whole, I don't think so necessarily. But I
Mhm.
think there's definitely a spotlight on it, and I hope that that spotlight gets bigger.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because that's what patients deserve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Truly.
Well, I know you walked through something so difficult at the beginning of this year in Palisades and your community and thousands of other LA residents. And, I asked you in advance for your permission to talk about, part of this journey, because I imagine it must feel still very surreal and raw and just I don't know. I think if I had walked through something like that in my community, there'd be a lot of just kind of disbelief. Like, did this actually happen? But for those in the audience who might not be familiar, I just want to make sure that everyone understands the story, what happened. But there were devastating wildfires in LA that occurred from January 7th to the 31st, marking one of the most destructive fire events in Southern California's history. So during this period, a series of 14 wildfires, exasperated by severe Santa Ana winds and drought conditions, swept through LA and surrounding communities, affecting your beautiful Palisades. And so, first off, I just wanted to say on behalf of Studio 88, it just makes me emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. It has been very surreal. It has been very, very, very surreal. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to pull myself together and just say, um, authentically, yeah, how deeply sorry
Thank you.
that you've walked
Thank
through that.
Yeah. It is, thank you. Yeah, it's something that even when you watch the news coverage, um, and even when you're standing in front of the destruction, you still can't quite process. And that's something that is uh, just very surreal that a lot of people aren't going to be able to see. It just video footage, aerial footage, it doesn't quite capture it, but when you're like standing in the midst of it, it's tremendous. And it really is unbelievable. Yeah.
So,
I've
when it all started to unfold, how did you hear about it? Were you, so you have your husband and you have a home there, and then you also practice there. So what was it like for the community? Was it on the news, or you were just watching it and then realizing it was coming your way?
Yeah, it was definitely on the news, but for me and for my team, we were seeing patients that morning. Um, and it was interesting because the night before, there were posts on the local news, like on social media, about life-threatening winds. And the news is just so annoying. nowadays. And I'm like, that's so stupid. Why would they use wording like that? We're used to California's used to wildfires. We're used to the Santa Ana winds. I'm like, that's just so stupid. Why would they? That just sounds so horrifying. Like, whatever. So we're seeing patients that morning of January 7th, and the patients are the ones getting notified,
Mm.
pick up their kids, and they're seeing the news. We're busy seeing patients.
Yeah.
And we learned of it initially from a couple patients who showed up for their appointments, sat in the chair, literally were like, I have to go. I need to go pick up I guess there's a fire and we're getting evacuation orders. So we're like, um, and I didn't know until my front desk coordinator, she came into my office and she's like, apparently there's a fire in the Highlands, which is where my husband and I live. And she's like, I think don't you should probably go check on Mochi, my our dog.
Oh,
And I'm like, that's so crazy. Okay. So we turn on the news in the office and we're like, oh wow, it's okay. We're like, oh, that's a tiny fire. It'll go out. Like they'll get it out. They always do. And then it just gets bigger and bigger and it spreads really fast. And my husband happened to be working from home that day. Um, he happened to be, and I say that because if he had not been home, we wouldn't have had any way to get our dog. So I called him. He was on work calls, pretty busy. He had no idea there was a fire like right outside our window.
oh my God.
And so we're texting him and he's like, okay, let me get off this call. Let me look outside. And he's sending us photos. And we're like, okay, you need to get out of there like now. Um, and he used to report for the news and everything. And he was just kind of like doing this play by play for us on the office. And we're like, get out of there. What are you doing? And he's like, honestly, I'm looking at the winds. It looks like it's going towards you because so where it started, it was kind of in the higher part of this town of our town and down where it's like down to the coast and down where our downtown area is, it's just like lower elevation. He's like, it's going towards you. So we're watching the news and we're like, oh gosh, now it's this many acres. Now it's this many acres. And it was happening so fast. So then we're like, okay, gosh, I guess we're gonna have to cancel the day. And it's like the start of the year. I had just finished planning our staff meeting for the following day, and I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. We're gonna have to cancel patients, but okay, fine. And she's like, well, what about patients for tomorrow? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, the rest of the day, tomorrow, just let them know. Um, and my staff, most of them commute to work, and my priority was just getting them out. And so I said, just there's so much traffic right now because everyone's evacuating. So everyone go to the restroom, make sure you grab your lunch. You can eat in your car. You'll be in traffic. So everyone just, get out of here. And I was just kind of like, oh, thinking about like production for the week and like the plan for the week and the year. And, of course we were kind of joking about it because we're like, oh, this is so annoying. And, just watching the news unfold and seeing how fast the flames were raging down the hill was really surreal. And my staff was ready to go, and I'm like, all right, get out of here. And they just were kind of lollygagging, and I'm just in my office because, of course, I was just like, I just want to make sure they're gone and not stuck in too much traffic, and I just need to work on some reports and all this stuff. And they came into my office, and they're like, we're not leaving until you leave with us. Um, they know me. I totally was gonna stay. So I was like, okay, fine. So I gather some things. I just grab my loops and I'm like, I don't know. We're gonna come back in a day and a half. This is so annoying. But of course, like in hindsight, there were so many other things I wish I'd grabbed. But um, so we all exit the building and we're like, whoa. And it was just the sky was just completely full of smoke. And I just made sure the staff like drove away and I just drove right across the street to just watch. I'm like, this is not happening. This is not happening. And watching the flames just race down the hill towards us. was so surreal. Like it was definitely, I think at that point I had dissociated. I have this weird thing where I do stay really calm
Mhm.
under stressful situations, but as I saw the flames just come down the hill faster and faster, I was like, okay, time. I don't, this is so surreal. So I got in my car and just started heading away. And of course, there was so much traffic. And I didn't know where I was going to go. But I just, at that point, um, my husband was strategizing when he was going to evacuate. And it worked out that he didn't try to leave sooner because he was stuck up on this hill near where the fire started. And it was so gridlocked that he would not have been able to actually safely exit the town because people who are gridlocked at the bottom of the hill, and a lot of people saw this on the news, they were told, and I had a couple of friends caught in that gridlock. They were told, if you want to live, you have to leave your cars now. So they abandoned their cars, just, grabbed a pet or two, or, grabbed whatever they could and just like ran towards the water. So after a few hours, bulldozers were sent to get those cars out of the way. So my husband was able to kind of get through and drive away. And it was just so crazy seeing in your rearview mirror the flames just kind of like coming towards you. And it just happened so fast. Um, so fast. And I think starting that day for probably a good couple weeks, I was just like in a total state of shock. And that night, just watching the news, we were all just glued. Everybody was, I mean, I didn't realize that it was national news and global news. And, I had people from different parts of my life texting and calling.
Yeah.
I didn't know I knew so many people. We felt bad. We couldn't get back to everybody, but asking about how we were, and everybody was just watching it unfold. And I just figured there's no way our building could burn down in our office because it's brick.
Yeah.
And then when we were watching the news that night and I saw the school right next door burning to the ground, I was just kind of like, huh, I think it might burn down. Um, and so it was um, the next morning, I got confirmation from the orthodontist upstairs who had gotten a photo from the building maintenance guy of our building. It was a 3-story medical building that was burned to the street level. And it wasn't until a day or two after that I did find out that our suite was actually on the basement level. So our suite actually didn't burn down, but I mean, when a 3-story building
Yeah.
burns on top of it,
Yeah.
it might as well have. But
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
and because we're so close to everyone in the community, my best friend lives just right around the corner from the practice. Like ever, just it was such a shocking, unbelievable, unfathomable chapter, especially those first few weeks where people had no idea if their home burned down, or there was so much uncertainty. And I've known a few people who saw their home survive the following morning just to find out that a day or two later it burned down. So it was, the winds persisted for a good several days, I think. And we evacuated to a friend's home, probably about an hour north. And it was just so surreal seeing, like, of course, the Palisades, but Altadena way to the east and other little pockets of just like fires. And it was just very surreal. And it it felt like just the state of hell where there was so much uncertainty where people were kind of like, guess everything's just gonna burn down? Like everything. It's just
Yeah.
the whole town. How is that possible? Um, but there were so many other factors um that played into why it continued to burn for so long. But there's,
So
yeah.
was the majority of the destruction, did it happen within those first few days? Because I know it said technically the fires went all the way through the entire month. I mean, that's
Hmm.
weeks
Yeah.
of Fires.
Yeah, weeks. Yeah, it was, and the air quality was
Oh,
so horrific.
mm,
Yeah, I would say most of the destruction was in the first few days for sure.
okay.
And then I mean, I was certain that our place had burned our residence, and it was just wild to see days after aerial footage and our friends we were staying at, with whom we were staying, they were like, I think your guys' place is actually still standing, and I'm like, there's no way, and it was just so crazy to see that our neighborhood somehow survived, and just to see like when everything kind of settled to see what survived and what didn't. There's no rhyme or reason, and it just was really surreal. And it wasn't until, and it went all the way to Malibu, like up the coast for miles and miles and miles. And um, it was just so devastating to hear about our our patients and families who local families who own small businesses who lost everything. So many people we knew lost both their home and their business. Um, and so everybody just scattered, and it was just so crazy to see how, um, LA, that's such a vibrant city, just I mean, literally burned to the ground, but also people scattering and scrambling to find shelter. And I'm like, how many? And thankfully, it is LA, so it has the capacity, but to house certain, like, I
Mm,
mean, you're talking about, I mean, just in the Palisades alone, it's like almost 30,000 people, I believe, just needing to find a place, like, boom, overnight. And several miles outside of that area, people had mandatory evacuations. So there were just I mean,
yeah,
tens and tens and tens of thousands of people just having no place to go, like overnight. And it was really surreal. Um, and it was just pure chaos for um, weeks after.
yeah.
So,
Where did you and your team, because when you walk through something like that you're completely blindsided by, uh, where does that courage come from? You know what I mean? Because at that moment, it's there. It's not that you can go, "Hey, I'm going to go take a leadership course and learn how to be courageous." It's in you. Whatever courage, level of courage you have, it's already there and existing. And
yeah.
I wondered if you could just speak to, were you amazed at your own self-courage and your team, just even the Palisades community on the whole?
I mean, daily, I'm amazed. Um, and I'm a very faithful person. I've been through a lot, even before the fire. I think it was kind of like and I know every challenge, every unimaginable thing that you go through really does build character and really does give you lessons and tools. And so I think the things that been through in the years prior really helped me realize that, okay, this is a whole different scale of tragedy that we're dealing with right now. But I know how this story ends. Like it's going to look very different. The road to recovery in this particular situation is going to be so unprecedented, but it is going to be victorious and glorious at the end of it all. Um, and so um, I leaned very much into my faith at that time. And also, like, this instinctual mama bear in me was very, very concerned about my team and my patients because at the end of the day, I still had to practice. We had no building, we had no town, but um, so, it's just like when that's happening, you're kind of in this total shock slash survival mode.
Mm,
And then you're just like, okay, what do I need to do? There's no roadmap, there's no guidebook, but I have skills and experience, and I have an amazing network of people working behind the scenes for the practice, for from not even just insurance, but my financial team and people like all these people behind the scenes that I'm like, okay, let me just tell whoever I need to, who has any stake in the practice, obviously they know what's going on, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do, but let me just start, you know, it's kind of like there's like that saying like when you pull your bootstraps up and I'm like when you got no boots you just go without boots, you don't even have straps to pull up, you just go. Like I don't even know if this is the right way to go. I don't know what you need, but so thankfully I'm a really good student, and I, of course I was just like, oh gosh, okay, I know we have insurance. I don't even know how good it is. I know it's very expensive, but let me contact them. And so um the moment I saw the building burn down, I got on the phone and they were like, whoa, you're really quick. Like, we see what's going on. We were going to reach out to the policyholders, and I was like, what do you need from me? And the moment you give me a list of things that you need, you're going to get it plus 10 other documents that you might not even have asked for. So, um, and I immediately just, I asked the most pressing question was, can I still take care of my team? I.e., can I still pay my team? Like, I don't know what this coverage looks like, but I just want to know, like, I need to take care of my team. I want them to know that they are still going to have a job. Um, I don't know when we're going to be able to see patients again, but they still have a job because the Palisades dentist still exists as a business. There's no building, but it still exists. So it was just this really scrappy kind of, crying brick by brick, crawling on the floor. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to keep going. I don't know in what direction, but I just know that I just have to keep going. And so one thing after another, it's like, what do we need there? What do we need there? Okay. Oh, yeah. Do we even have our patient records? Are those retrievable? Okay. So it was like this constant. It's funny, and I joked to people, I think out of a coping mechanism, I was just kind of like, we had no practice, but I've never been busier in my entire life, which is actually true. But there was just so much to do, um, to kind of at least get up and running to some capacity. So, and thankfully through our amazing community of colleagues and people who were reaching out, I had to really decide what would be the best way to go to finish cases, or like one of our patients, she's a retired dentist. Her whole life burned down, but we literally, she didn't have a number 9 implant crown, and she was like mid-treatment. Her crown was like in the office still, and I'm like, okay, let me just take care of one person at a time, do one thing at a time, because all we can do. But if it's just something, it's something. So it was a very like scrappy, fight or flight approach the first couple of weeks for sure. But as I got more clarity in what I needed to do and what we could do, what we had the capacity to do, what I could, even as far as operations with business, with insurance, like it was just like this constant, um, yeah, it was this constant labor, like from the moment, I mean, I don't think any of us really slept a full night's first few weeks. Like it was like this constant like nightmare that you're like, so I was like, okay, that's great. I'm not sleeping. Like I can just get more done.
Yeah.
So that's fine. So it was just a lot of like, just, there was a lot of, you couldn't even wait for the dust to settle. You had to like push it out of the way to kind of get more clarity of what the next steps would be to take. But it was pretty immediate for me because I just, for me, and it's in the past and it's something that I still, try to navigate, where it's like when I'm grieving or mourning, I kind of do that while still like taking steps in a certain direction. And then I find pockets to like really rest and process. But I'm like, and that's something I think that, sure, I probably honed it in the military, but I think that's just kind of like part of who I am, where I'm like, I've got a duty, I have a mission, I have people to take care of. So, um, I'll take care, like in taking care of them and taking care of, like, that's how I can take care of myself right now.
Yeah.
and I'll find time to rest. And I do find some rest in that, in knowing that XYZ is taken care of, that they know that they're getting their paycheck, they know that they're getting their tooth, and like that gives me
Yeah.
some level of peace and rest.
Yeah.
So even though it feels very chaotic, so
I have to say, just on behalf of everyone listening and myself, you are so brave. And I know that might, uh, feel weird to hear, but I have to say that because you are. And that just is such a huge act of courage to, um, to rebuild, really. You acquired the practice and made it your own, but then this is really just starting over in many ways.
yeah,
And it's no small thing.
it's
It's,
no small thing, but we're eager and excited. I used to joke with people that I'm like, because I have a lot of friends who have done startups and are going through that journey. I'm like, oh, thank God I don't have to worry about that. And I'm like, oh gosh, but we are I will always go back to gratitude. I'm like, we are so fortunate, you guys, that we have a practice. We have patients, even though most of them lost their homes and they have said that they will go wherever we are. We have patients to serve, and we'll find a building. We'll find a place. We'll find, in our temporary space right now, we're making it work. And as it makes sense over the months and of course, I'm like constantly in touch with team behind the scenes and my broker to identify spaces where it makes sense to go back to, whether it's a completely new construction or a second gen dental space. I'm like, we're going to make it great. It already is phenomenal and we're going to make it even greater. But the fact that like we're so blessed that it's like a reverse startup. I'm like, gosh, we have patience.
right.
We just don't have a building,
Yeah.
but we'll get it. So, yeah, in our particular journey, I'm so grateful that we had the type of insurance coverage that we had. I was a little bit of a maniac when it came to resources, and I've learned to ask for help. And so, staying connected with the chambers of commerce of LA and Malibu and Palisades and um, different resources in town, we were able to get some help here and there. There's been just extreme generosity from some of our colleagues who I've not even met in person. Dr. Sunny Spera from the Fee for Service podcast literally sent an intraoral scanner. It was like an old used one, but he literally like sent it from the East Coast. So things like that were so deeply appreciated. And it was just so beautiful. And I would do the same for others, but it's just like when you're the recipient of it, it's
Yeah.
really it's so tremendous. Like you can't even like process like how grateful you are. But it was also just very beautiful in the midst of such tragedy, experiencing that kind of humanity. It was very beautiful.
I,
So
oh my gosh. Dr. Klaus, could you, well, one, thank you for sharing just so authentically what you've walked through and just you and the courage you and your team have showed to rebuild and your heart and passion for your patients. It's just beautiful. I wonder, so many of all of the dental practice owners out there, whether it's startup or you've acquired or maybe you're rebuilding something and making it your own. There are a lot of highs and lows in dentistry. And on this podcast, we always talk about the hard along with all the good, because I think that it connects us and it helps, whoever out there is listening to this feel less alone. Um,
yeah.
do you have any final encouragement for the doctors listening who are going through an insurmountable challenge they didn't expect? And, you know, just any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I have a lot, but let me try to make it concise. I had kind of mentioned, like even before the wildfires, I had gone through certain things, and I see what we go through as clinicians, and we're people who go through health challenges, divorces, deaths in the family, all sorts of things. And no matter how hard you try, it feels like sometimes it's like, it's like you take one step forward and two steps back. And I think my main encouragement for people is just always, always know that it's going to be okay, and that every chapter is just that. It's just a chapter. No matter how dark it is, no matter how unimaginable it is, it's just a chapter, and that there are new chapters ahead. So that's one thing. For me, leaning into my faith has been something that I don't know what I would have done without it. Um, for people who even question their purpose or why they even got into dentistry, just kind of hone into those moments where you really connect with your patient that remind you why you're doing what you do. Um, and those moments of pure fulfillment, even if it was that one case that you finished 2 years ago. And just for every discouraging thing that we encounter, there are 5 or 10 other things that can uplift us. And just know that everything is used to make us better and to refine us and to teach us lessons and to make us grow. And so when you're sitting in those seasons of discouragement or darkness, just like know that you are growing through that. Even though it feels like so uncomfortable, um, just sit in that and be grateful for that because you are gaining skills and learning things that you would not learn outside of that situation. So, and you'll be able to encourage someone else down the road, whether it's your patient or someone in your family or your kids or someone who you just meet along the street. Like there's so many ways that we can be used to be a light in this world. And those dark seasons is where it's like it's where all that good stuff, that goodness comes out, and you can make a decision of how you want to be used. And you can be used as a light and as a survivor and as someone who's overcome, or you can stay as a victim in that dark space. And it's always, I mean,
Yeah.
doing the former is always going to be the better option.
Yeah. Well, I can firmly say you fall into the category of bright lights in our world.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so thankful for you and just your story and the time you took today away from patients and, doing all the things that I'm sure you have on your plate to share all of this. How can our audience stay in touch with you and follow you?
So personal and practice. So I'm Dr. Cerisa on Instagram. In our practice, we are the Pali Dentist. That's our website and our Instagram handle. And we're very involved in any aspects of the rebuild of the community. So you'll probably find us poking our head around in certain events and things like that as far as restoring our community. But we're fairly active on Instagram. And we are still, despite everything, despite being in a temporary space, like we are still accessible through all forms of contact on our website, text, email, phone.
That's awesome. Okay. And
Yeah.
also, you had passed on, I had asked for some organizations that are, really helping um, that community rebuild in LA on the whole. And so we're going to link those in the show notes. And so if anyone in the audience wants to, donate to these organizations, Dr. Klaus said that they are fantastic. There's the LA Strong Foundation, Steadfast LA, and also Pally for Pally. And so we'll link those in the show notes. Thank you, Cerisa, from the bottom of my heart for just being
Um,
my guest today. And it was an honor to get to know you and your story.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. You are a gift. Thank you for helping spread stories of encouragement among not just us in the profession, but for everybody. And my husband and I look forward to when you guys come out to
Yes.
LA.
I'd love to do that. You'll have to show us just, yeah, we'll have to meet and you can give us a recommendation on a good spot and
Definitely.
the date for sure.
Excellent. We'll
Awesome.
be in touch for sure. I appreciate you and everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of the Story Project. Let's be fearless together, ladies, this week, and we'll see you next episode.